If you want your videos to look the best that they possibly can, then don't make these 6 lighting mistakes. Let's get the most obvious one out of the way first, and that's to not set your light brightness too high or too low, so you result in an under or overexposed shot. Digital sensors have limited dynamic range from the detail they can capture in the shadows all the way up to the highlights, so if you accidentally set your light too bright or too dark, you're not going to be maximizing the detail that you could capture in the image. Currently, this shot that you're looking at with this one key light is set to correct exposure for middle grey, and I've set that exposure using a grey card. So you should be able to see reasonably pleasing skin tones and also reasonably low levels of noise in the background, and also none of the highlights on my face are completely blown out or clipped. I'm going to increase the brightness of the light now to actually overexpose this shot. I'm going to keep all of the settings the same in the camera. So we'll go a little bit crazy there, and I've just adjusted that light up another 50%. You should be able to see now my skin on this side of my face is going to look really bad. It's going to look really bright. We're going to get a bit of extra brightness on the side wall there and in the background. The actual subject of this shot is my face. Watch what happens now if I bring that exposure down in post. So there's a note to future editing Jason. What I'm going to try and do is, using color grading, I'm going to try and fix this exposure using DaVinci Resolve in this case, and you should be able to notice that even though I've brought down the exposure, we can't really recover any of that highlight detail. It's still kind of all just one big white mess. Let's go the opposite way now, and I'm going to reduce the brightness of the light, and this is going to underexpose the shot. Alright, so we're down to 6% now, so that's going to look really dark. The problem with setting your brightness of your lights too low is that if you try and fix that in post by just increasing the exposure while you're color grading or editing, it's going to actually bring up the level of noise in the image, and usually you're going to see that more in the shadows. Right, let's just fix that so you can see me again. The other thing about under or overexposing your image when you're filming by setting the brightness of the light too dark or too light is that when you underexpose or overexpose an image in a digital sensor, you might also kind of get strange color casts or skin tones changing and not quite looking proper, which is going to give you more work to do in post-production and editing, even if you can save the image by adjusting the exposure in post. Mistake 2, if you want neutral looking colors, is to accidentally set the color temperature of your light different to the white balance set in your camera. At the minute, the camera is set to 5500 Kelvin manual white balance, and this key light here is also set to a color temperature of 5500 Kelvin. This gives us neutral looking colors in the image. Just because your main light is matching the color temperature in your camera doesn't mean you can't use different color temperature lights in the background, for example. So let me go and flick on this light. So that light in the background is an Aputure LS60X, and it's got a color temperature set to 2700 Kelvin. So it's going to seem a lot warmer on the background, and it's probably going to give a bit of warmth to this wall here, even though the main light that's lighting my face is still 5500 Kelvin, so it still matches the camera's white balance. You can of course use a different color temperature in your light if you want to get different moods. So let me go and change the color temperature of this key light. So I've got that light set to 2700 Kelvin now. I haven't changed the white balance in the camera, and I'm also not going to try and correct this color in the color grading process. So this is what you see pretty much straight out of camera. This is giving us a really kind of warm, almost bonfire look to the lighting. So this is technically not a correct neutral exposure, but it does give a certain feeling to the image. Let's go the other way now, and I'll turn up this white balance as high as it's going to go, 6500 Kelvin. Now you should see a much bluer, kind of sterile, almost hospital looking, clinical looking colors in the image. So this is not incorrect if this is the feeling and the mood that you're going for. Mistake 3 is forgetting to use negative fill in conjunction with your lights. I've moved the shot now. I'm standing right next to this bright white wall. The key light's there, so it's lighting up this face, but it's also bouncing light off of this wall onto this shadow side. It's filling in the shadows on this side of the face. This might actually be the look that you want, but using negative fill, you can really increase the drama or the moodiness of the shot. I'm just going to grab some negative fill. Okay, there we go. And normally, you wouldn't have the negative fill in the shot like this. I'm just doing it to demonstrate. I haven't changed the brightness of the light, and you should be able to see now this side of the face is a lot darker, there's a lot more shadow, and it overall looks a lot more moody. I'm just using some black material here, but you could also use black cardboard or black foam board to create negative fill. Mistake 4 is not controlling spill from your lights. Spill is where the light from the lighting fixture goes places where you basically don't want it to go. At the minute, this is just got a soft box on it with no kind of spill suppression, and you should be able to see that all of the walls here are being lit up, and also the ceiling, and also back into that scene. Let's go and add some spill suppression in the case of an egg crate to this light, and I'll show you the difference. So this egg crate is going to focus the light in kind of one direction, and if I come over to the side here, you can see that I can't actually see much light coming from the side now. It's all being directed in the front of the light. Alright, you can see now that we've controlled that spill. We've got a lot less light kind of coming onto this back wall and above me, and also into the background there. There's loads of other ways to control spill. For example, that negative fill that we're using, we could put that off to one side of the light out of shot to prevent some of the light going that way. You can also use things like barn doors. Mistake 5, if you want a more realistic or quote cinematic looking image, is to not motivate where your main light source is coming from. So in this example, I've just got this key light off to my right, but it kind of looks like, well, where is this light coming from in real life? So I'm just going to demonstrate this. I'm going to bring in this practical floor lamp, and we're just going to position this somewhere in the frame. This is just a very simplistic example. In a real life situation, you'd have some table lamps, for example, in the background. But now it kind of looks like the light coming from this main key light is actually coming from this light in the background here, even though this light is in no way powerful enough to create this amount of light on my face. You can also use part of a window for this example. So you might have a part of the window in the frame there with the light just next to it out of frame, and it just helps to sell or motivate the source of the light. Mistake 6 is to not use the apps that are able to control lights. For example, with the aperture lights, you can use the Sidus Link app. For example, I could change the color temperature of this light on the fly, make it more blue or warmer. I can also change the intensity of these lights. For example, I could make this key light darker. Let's just reduce the intensity. There we go. And a lot of these apps let you save presets and even save entire lighting setups that use multiple light fixtures, so you can just recreate lighting looks whenever you want to. Let me give you a bonus mistake, and that's not subscribing to this channel and turning on notifications, so you end up missing out on future lighting videos, and also not checking out this playlist to learn loads of tips to make better looking videos. I'm Jason Roberts. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one.